So my next speaker is Jaxon Repp. He's a field CTO over at HarperDB. So Jaxon, I'll ask you to turn on your camera and unmute yourself so I can give you the virtual floor.
So I took a slightly different tack to this this webinar as a partially reformed developer. I've been handed product requirements on a paper napkin and told that this was all the information that we had, but just make it work. And one of the situations as a developer until it does, and then you're not even really sure why it does work, let alone why people would want to use it and whether or not they're happy. So not a lot of feedback traditionally as a developer at very small startups. So a little bit about me. I say recovering developer now, a father to 2 daughters, and I live in Denver, Colorado. I've been a part of 8 startups, I've had a couple exits, and I've had 5 opportunities for learning. And right now I work for HarperDB. We're a distributed application platform trying to solve the challenges of data at global scale, and all the latency and usability and security challenges that come with trying to put your data everywhere around the planet so your apps run faster, right? That company's been around for now 5.5 years, and I've been there for most of that time. And we're gaining popularity, and that has been a tremendous journey. Finding product market fit and understanding how you get your feedback before you even have customers. Who are those early adopters that are going to break the platform and make it better? So for the product roadmap that we had, it was let's just figure out how to store data, and then let's go into this distributed world and do it differently. So there was a lot of guessing and not a lot of tooling around it. So things like air focus were not even on our radar. It was mostly, again, paper napkins, sticky notes, and occasional emails and a Slack. The 5 stages of grief, updated for product development. There is, if you've ever taken Psychology 101, you've heard of this theory, the 5 stages of grief. Product development is not that different, right? The first one is denial. My idea is unique, the market is massive, and nobody has ever tried to do the thing I want to do before. And then you get real angry when you do a little more work and you realize that somebody has done it before, and they suck, but they've still cornered the market, and also that market is like smaller than I thought it was. And then there's bargaining, right? Where I bet if I add feature X and hit price point Y, I can disrupt and enlarge this market, unseat these pretenders to my throne. And then there's depression. It turns out the market disruption is super hard. I feel like I'm both late and early and right on time, depending on who you talk to, what day it is, and just quite frankly, how I feel. And then finally, acceptance. The thing I've built isn't everything I want it to be, but it's close enough to the thing that I wanted to build. It's enough of the things that at least one customer is willing to use it, and you hold on to that and you build around it. And those stages of an early product roadmap are the through. And this is my 8th startup, right? So I've watched it happen. I've watched you run headlong into meetings with absolute confidence that the product you are building meets the needs of the person who's going to be sitting across the table from you. In reality, it doesn't always hit, and finding product market fit is really, really hard. The old school thought, right, when you walked into that meeting, is the minimum viable product, just enough to get the job done. Lots of opportunity for improvement and polish, and the old adage, if you're happy with it, you waited too long, you're too late. That is sort of gone by the wayside. We've heard things like minimum wonderful product, right? Bring some joy or spark some joy. I think wonderful is such an abstract term that it's hard to bank on that and say that's what we're going to do and that's when we're going to pull the trigger, because wonderful is different for everybody. But the new school is, at least in my mind, to follow on that it should just work adage, is easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Frictionless onboarding. It should be easy to use it, no matter what it is. It doesn't have to be a a SaaS product or a software product or anything, right? Uber succeeded, to use the example from the previous presentation. Uber succeeded because it was just, quite frankly, easier than all the other solutions. The polished user experience, their UI was incredible. It was unlike any app you'd ever seen before. You knew exactly what you were getting, when you were getting it, and where it was. Quite frankly, it was fun to play with, right? You'd see the little cars driving around. And that killer feature to save time or money, and to be honest, over the infrastructure and transportation in a lot of, at least American cities, you saved both. So it was a killer app that happened to sort of change the world of transportation. And it wasn't a minimum viable product. It came out fully birthed and it accomplished everything it wanted to do. So when I built products, in years past, long before Uber was even a thing, I always fell prey to the mantra of, I'm going to continue polishing it. I'm never going to be done. I don't want to show you yet. I'm not happy with it. But the reality is, over time, you get better at building the things that make something wonderful or easy to use. User experience and user flow comes with time spent building things that people don't like, and being ready and able to accept that feedback. So to talk about like frictionless onboarding, that's been a conversation where, putting a credit card on your sign up form is death to your app, and never ever do that, right? And then social login became a thing, and then we realized that maybe owning our users' information and not handing it away was perhaps a better, more responsible thing to do. Easy to install. Like, does it have to be a massive, bunch of CDs that you used to get, or even floppy disks to install? That was not easy. The web was easy, but people were downloading software from there. The first MacBook that didn't have a drive in it, everybody thought, oh my God, that's going to fail. And now almost nobody's walking around with a hard drive in their computer anymore, or a DVD drive. So what is the definition of easy? It changes over time, but we are continually pushing toward almost a space where it does the things I need it to do without me even asking, or barely asking. ChatGPT is an amazing example of that too. I've never seen anybody type in a question to say, hey, generate me a React component that will do the following things, and boom, the code just exists along with documentation for it. I hate writing documentation. This might be an amazing thing for me to integrate into, some of the products we work on. And then help me if I ask. Don't become so intrusive in their lives. Instead, provide them the source. And my personal mantra is, I hate writing documentation. I do it because it's necessary, but hopefully if the product is well designed enough, you won't even need the documentation. And really that's what I shoot for. And that's what I think people should shoot for, is an absolute relentless focus on making it easy to use. And that goes into polished user experience, right? So it's not just the buttons are where I expect them, although that's super important, but it goes to graphic design. Like, it needs to look like it's a product that I should invest my time in, right? I have lots of choices for almost every piece of software or every application that I could use. Wow me with something that just works, that's super easy, that I don't need to read any manual for, and have that relentless focus. If you get stuck in that adding features to make people happy, that's a never ending treadmill of despair, where in reality, they just want you to be really, really good at one thing that saves them time and money. So to that point, that killer feature, right? Show me how clever you are right up front. Put it in your marketing, put it on your website, put it, straight up front, and show me how it works, and get me wowed. You can backfill a lot of polish and a lot of features after the fact, right? Figure out what the pain point is for your target customer. Figure out, what are they asking for after they've started using it. A customer-driven product roadmap is a wonderful thing to have. It is interested and they care, right? We at HarperDB, we've launched a database, and there's like a lot of databases that people could use, and a whole bunch of people have chosen us primarily because I think they believe we're easier to use and a little bit more polished in terms of the user experience. And when they ask for features, these are all things that we've thought of, because we are, again, a team full of developers that just wanted to solve our own pain points with a database that was easier to use. But when we look at customers that are at different stages of their careers, you begin to pick up all of the things that were pain points for you when you started, and you want to work to alleviate those for the next generation of people who are coming up, right? Reuse a convention from somewhere else, right? So, web-based content management systems, everybody's super familiar with those. At HarperDB, we built a web-based management suite for our database. It was super easy to build. It's always up to date. Nobody has to install software. You just go to a website. It interacts with the HTTP API and the core product. But it was a revolutionary, we thought, way to manage content on a product that typically involves, a lot of other software for something that's basically invisible at its core. And ultimately make me look like a hero for bringing this either into my organization or sharing it with my social network. Make me look like the guy who found the coolest thing, right? And I look at ChatGPT, and I am constantly trying to figure out how, along with probably every other product manager in the world, how to integrate that into my product. SQL queries are ornate. In reality, what I really want is just, I want to know how many dogs owned by people in my office are of a breed that traditionally likes this cold weather, right? So I asked that question. Could you give me an answer, right? Integrate something, build something that absolutely, blows their mind, and then you build on that and let customers come to you. You'll get them with one feature, but you need to continually listen to them and respond to them. And that's been, one of the greatest challenges of software development over the course of my career. And it's also, the absolute best part of it, because you think, you're so sure that this thing is going to change the world, and you put it out there and it falls flat. And then you add something, or you change something, you talk to somebody and they say, that's not even close to anything that I'm interested in. I can't believe that anybody gave you money to build this, let alone you've wasted your time on it. And sometimes that's absolutely true. Sometimes you miss the mark entirely. Sometimes you build it to solve a pain point for exactly one person. I have lots of those. But again, as you are building these products, continually attempt to make it easier and easier to use with that one killer feature, right? It should just work as long as, all the other stars align. It's got to be the right idea. It's got to be the right team. That's the biggest lesson is understand that the different kinds of product roadmaps require different types of people. Like there are feature-driven people, and there are large strategic people, and there are people who just want to solve exactly one problem. And you need to make sure you have the right team, both from the executive level all the way down to developer QA. How much do we care about this? Is it enough to stop the launch of a new version of the product the customers have been asking for? The right tooling, right? So I mentioned the napkin in the beginning. That doesn't survive for very long. So what are those tools? AirFocus sounds great, actually. We use, a combination of Jira and Asana and Slack, and we have lots of tooling around what we do. And how can we make that more efficient? And the right timeline. Nothing happens in a vacuum, and you have to be realistic about when you need to go to market and when you need to, kind of pull back a little bit and say, what we have now is good enough. Let's focus on some other area of the business to build out, perhaps our support team or our infrastructure team. Let's build out the things we have. And ultimately we will move forward at the right pace so that nobody gets burned out and nobody quits, because if we lose our people, we lose everything. And finally, it's the right attitude. This is supposed to be fun, right? And that's what we focus on. And that's about it for me.